Dude, are you excited for the new book, Rime of the Frostmaiden?
You could say that. I had a dream that kind of left me with a frost rhyme inspired monster.
Oh yeah? Tell me more.
Hear me out. The blood rhyme. Ted, help me create a new D&D monster.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Nerdarchy for nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Hey, you want more D&D monster videos in your YouTube feed? Then reach out with your favorite pseudopod and slam that subscribe button.
But if you want more Nerdarchy videos, then slither over to that notification bell.
You know, Ted, you know where's a great place to make your own monsters?
Would that be D&D Beyond?
Yes, our sponsor D&D Beyond makes it so easy to add your homebrew content to your D&D game. But that's not all. It's a huge database of all things from Wizards of the Coast, official Dungeons & Dragons material, and so much more over there.
That homebrew content that you talked about is a great way to go ahead, build your monsters, build out your encounters, build out your magic items. There's so many useful tools over there, including the newly released Dice app, which allow you to roll right there on your character sheet. It is super awesome. We love doing it in our home games. So question is, do you?
There will be a link in the description. Go check out D&D Beyond.
All right, Dave, so you're talking about wanting to build a brand new monster that is inspired by the upcoming book, Rime of the Frostmaiden. Why don't you lead us into it?
All right, I was laying in bed one night, and I don't know if I had just been looking at something about, the new D&D book or whatever, but the words blood rhyme popped into my head, and I just envisioned this puddle of blood, right, that like seeps out of crevices, or maybe, it's hanging around the dead body, and the players discover the scene, and this pool of blood with that thin crusting a rime of ice over top of it. Then all of a sudden it begins to slither up their leg, sucking the life force out of them, and then once it's had its fill, retreating back into a crevice or something, never to be seen again.
That sounds pretty darn disgusting there, Dave. Don't you think there's enough oozes and nasty things like that already in the monster manual?
No, Ted, there's not.
How did I know you were going to say that?
So I thought we could create this monster. I guess it doesn't have to be purely an Arctic or tundra monster. It's just that's just what kind of came to my mind. But if there was a tundra or Arctic variant, I feel like, in addition to kind of sucking your life force, it might also do some cold damage, have a bit of a freezing attack when it slams you. So it slams, freeze. And then, this idea that you have to make a saving throw, or you're going to lose hit dice.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, we know that we love using the hit dice with our own, homebrew stuff. We've even got, a new condition that we're working on for, upcoming rewards that even could be linked to this if it's doing extra cold stuff as well.
Yeah, so, I just thought it would be a fun monster. But first of all, we can just kind of look at oozes in general to kind of figure out what they get. Many oozes get false appearance, so that's easy enough. It looks like a puddle of blood or blood splattering or something along that nature.
And what does everyone do automatically when there's blood on the ground? Like, you got to go over and poke at it. Like, oh, I need to investigate this.
Oh, yeah. So, someone does that. They crouch down to investigate. Next thing you know, right at their face, sucking out their life force. Brutal. Amorphous is another trait that all oozes pretty much get, and that just means they can squeeze through areas and go places that other creatures aren't going to be able to go.
And those kind of things have the possibility of like lurking with a kind of getaway in mind. I don't know exactly how intelligent this one would be, but they slither out, they wait, and they, and basically they just sit there and wait until something comes, like any other predator, and it'll slink back in.
Well, that's what I the way I see it, right? They don't have to be that intelligent. It's just simple. Detect food source, eat until you're full, and then go back to hiding. As many creatures do.
All right, so if it's an ooze, it doesn't really have that natural cycle, so it doesn't need to sleep. So it could literally just be, eat, go do what it needs to do, until it's hungry again, and then, rinse, repeat.
So the thing about oozes is they're not very hard to get away from. They're very slow, right? For the most part. But they don't need to sleep, and you probably do. So, for them, it's always a long distance race. It's a marathon. So if they're hunting you because they detected life or their favorite food source, they could be slinking in your direction while you're sleeping.
That's absolutely true. And, talking about slinking, they've got the ability to, maneuver, up walls and what have you. So they basically operate like a spider climb.
Yeah, not all oozes get spider climb, but a lot of them do, and I think it's appropriate for this one. Something walks under them, they detect it as food, they just fall off the ceiling on it. Now you're covered in ooze, and it's, sucking on your life force in the meantime until it's full, and then it can try and slink away into the dark crevices. I just think this would be a fun and disturbing monster to throw at my players.
And, fun and disturbing monsters are kind of the things that, make for memorable encounters.
Now, when we talk about building this monsters, we looked at a lot of the basic traits that we kind of brought up, but we're looking at, your gray oozes, your orchard jellies, and your black puddings. Any of them are great for modeling this monster to kind of come up with, where you want to place it. You could just look at the CR of any of those three and make it either easier or harder depending on, but it gives you a really good kind of area to target to make this monster fast and dirty. A
good range, absolutely. All right, so that kind of, when you're looking at those monster types, that leaves you with, two different options. You brought up, in your dream that it kind of eats and then slinks away. But, what if it would have this concept like, some of the other oozes where it eats and splits?
Yeah, so under certain conditions, certain oozes will split. We thought about that. We also kind of looked at the sturge as far as modeling the concept of they come, they attach, they suck a certain amount of blood from you, and then they kind of leave. But then we're like, well, what if they sucked a certain amount of blood, and that's how they populate, and they split, and one of them leaves, but the other one kind of stays.
Yeah, so that whole hunger factor of, okay, well, you're making the encounter more interesting because you're adding another element, another monster, but at the same time, the one is trying to leave. But as you mentioned, oozes are slow, so if it's not able to get away right away, the players have the choice of, do you focus fire on the monster that is fleeing, or the new one that showed up and is now hungry?
And you can also look at the black pudding, because I think slashing damage and lightning damage makes it split. So a lot of the mechanics that we want already exist in the game. We're just going to add the new one where we're going to suck hit dice from our players. And I would probably make that like a die 4 or something, save for half. So they're always eating something, or save for nothing. It depends on how tough you want to make this monster. Both are viable options.
And then it would do a pseudopod attack. So it's doing some damage and draining, those hit dice, which, depending upon the style of game that you're playing, hit dice are a resource. So if you're not using our hit dice to heroics and you're not, really diving into, lots of combats every day that they're not useful for you, then this is not really the monster for that type of game. But if you are using those things and hit dice are super helpful, then this monster becomes a serious, credible threat to those style of games.
And also, you might even add some kind of regeneration. Every time they use that ability, they get some hit points back. And then, and the other thing, too, is, what happens when the person hits 0 for their hit dice, right? Is there another effect that we layer on top of that? These are all things to explore. But, hey, over on Nerdarchy Patreon, we tend to make monsters and different things. If this is something you would like us to explore further, let us know in the comments below.
So, there could even be a bigger, more evolved creature, on top of this. So, yeah, please let us know your feedback.
Yeah, what if one of these things goes around splitting, and then all the parts that split from the new one come together to form this, uber blood rhyme. I don't know. There's some cool things we can come up with and work out. But hey, do you want more monster videos? Check out Don't Be a Dummy, Use a Mummy.
And if you want to get access to some homebrew monsters, Nerdarchy does that every month over on our Nerdarchy Patreon.
That's not all. We do weekly Patreon-only live chats, monthly giveaways our patrons are automatically entered, and more.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.